weather that was made about the Venezuelans. A specific name has been dropped of one Gaidino Omar. My ladies and my lords, the contract between Smartmatic and IEBC was for the supply and maintenance of the infrastructure that they had. It then meant that they had to bring their personnel to manage or just monitor the smooth running of that system. Of significance is that Hilda, in her affidavit, then goes on to say that before the election, these people were all logged out of the system, and that on the date of the election, none of these people was in the system, even for purposes of that maintenance. My ladies and my lords, it would make a lot of sense if somebody said that so and so got into the system and they interfered with the system in this manner. It is not enough for somebody to say Gumbo was found in the system, because what matters here is the allegation around manipulation and alteration of the results. Now, if we do not get into this space, what exactly are we talking about? I would want to again equate this to a situation where in your house, you decide to assign a plumber to do for you some work. When the plumber comes to do the work, then you raise an alarm and say, oh wait, there's a plumber in my house. How is a plumber to do the work that he's supposed to be doing in the house? Certainly, it does not make much sense. If you expect the plumber to fix the plumbing problem, then certainly you must give him access to the plumbing problem that you have. Now, I have looked at, and we've tried perusing through all these documents. There is not a single form that has been presented which appears to suggest, even in the lightest of ways, that there was any interference. And again, just relating this to the architecture of our elections, if at all there was any such interference, it would have been an interference that goes into the numbers. Now, because we have not seen that, is this the case then, therefore, why numbers has become a very dicey and perhaps an area where everybody would want to avoid or run away from? In the petition, I suppose the first and most important thing is you must demonstrate that you had specific numbers. Even if there's to be contest, let it be contest between this set of numbers and the other set of numbers. It can't be a contest between the man who was said to be the man in the middle and numbers. If that man was in the middle for sure and he had a job to do, then that is a man who slept on his job. Because we are not shown anything that he perhaps could have done while in the space that he is alleged to have done anything that would have interfered with the will of the people. Hilda continues to wonder in her affidavit as to why their boss, who is a commissioner, would expose them to that extent that they mention names of people who are employees and staff of the institution doing their legitimate work. Then you cast aspersion without basis that they were engaged in a criminal enterprise. My ladies and my lords, it might sound like a light issue, but we must have seen it in social media, in mainstream media, that these people, who some of whom ran this election, have had to go into keeping house. They've had to go into hiding because people read these sort of things and they imagine that this is the gospel truth. Certainly, this is not a light issue. Yesterday, there was extensive submission as to whether this court is handicapped in terms of dealing with some of these things. Now, as the IEBC on the one hand tries to improve the system based on the law and the guidance from this court, I think there's also a responsibility that should attach or follow where we have very deliberate attempts at misleading the court. If we look at, for instance, the logs that have been attached by John Mark Gidongo, if it turns out to be a forgery, does it not disclose an offense? It is not in my province to make that determination, but where I see it, it bothers me, because as we go into elections this year, in 2027, we need to then sanitize some of these things that we do. And one of the ways of sanitizing them is by holding people to account, so that if you present evidence that is obviously not true or that is falsified, then you must stop to ask yourself whether there would be a consequence or not. That is the only way through which even this court would be able to sit, to be able to determine or preside over any of those matters that are presented with ease. I need to add that at the Bomas, which is the National Tallying Center, when the returning officers got to Bomas, what happened? Now, in the floor of Bomas, these returning officers would come with their original Form 34As, hand them to the national returning officer for purposes of a presidential election. After that, they would be subjected to an ICT team, and that ICT team was not sitting in isolation. They sat with the agents of the parties, they sat with observers, and what they were doing was to again confirm those security features we had spoken about. After that, they went into the detail around the numbers, comparing what they had in the Form 34As that were in the portal and the Form 34As that were then presented, the physical hard copies. From the direction and guidance of this court in 2017, Raila Odinga, what the commission was to do was to record those errors. I confirm, my ladies and my lords, that the commission did exactly that. The error report has been availed to this court, but of significance is that as they were preparing that error report, a copy of that error report was also availed to the agents of all the parties. This is important in the architecture of our elections. It is important because, as opposed to asking the court to now go through scrutiny, it will be a question of saying, wait a minute, in the error report, there's a difference between the results that came from Member Primary School, which I have either in my carbon copy from my agent, or that was presented by the returning officer, and what we are now seeing in the portal. That is the only way through which somebody could make an allegation that would stand the test of time. If you have that, then certainly, if you apply yourself to understand the architecture of our electoral platform, then there is really no need to go into scrutiny, because that report is scrutiny by itself. In fact, it was a forensic audit. They had their watermark readers, they had their UV light readers, and these are things that are all contained in the affidavits of these three individuals that I've spoken about. When you take time, you look at that, and it is then our submission that to the extent that there is an allegation that there were interferences or that there were differences between the Form 34As in the portal and the Form 34As physically presented by those returning officers, there was none, and this is verifiable. Indeed, none has been presented before you. The last issue I'm to deal with is whether there was a difference between Form 34As uploaded on the IEBC. Sorry, I think I've got into that point as well. And so, there was a question that was raised about Form 34C and the concern about the multiple entries. Submission was made by counsel that the Form 34C is supposed to be generated once. Again, that sort of submission would only come from a false if not limited, understanding of the process. I say that because as the verification and retallying of the Form 34As were going on at the National Tallying Center, whenever they completed the verification and retallying of a constituency, they would then upload it onto the Form 34C after the completion of the verification. That then meant that that process had to be an incremental process. That is why when somebody says that there is a gentleman called so-and-so who accessed the server or the rear end of the result transmission network 1,000 times, it simply speaks to the fact that they had to make entries. It should not be lost that we were using, according to the jurisprudence in Maina Kiai, results from the polling station, which is the original Form 34A. Now, if we look at the number of the polling stations, it speaks to about 46,000 and a few hundreds. It then meant that a corresponding number of entries had to be made on that Form 34C. And that, because I'd said it is supposed to be done incrementally, I would want to refer for clarity again to the affidavit of Commissioner Justice Nyang'aya. At paragraph 51 of the affidavit of Commissioner Justice Nyang'aya, he says, or he acknowledges, that indeed it would be inaccurate, impractical to expect the 7 commissioners to be the ones to do all these specific assignments that the commission is supposed to be doing. Similarly, and by parity of thought, when the law says that the commission shall, for purposes of this, generate that Form 34C, the law does not contemplate that the chairperson of a commission will sit with a laptop and make 46,000 plus entries by himself. This is what my learned senior counsel Kamau Karori was speaking to. This is what is contemplated under Section 11 and 11A of the IEBC Act. And so, if we then tie this to the submission that he had earlier on made, that if we read under Article 138(3)(c), the Independent Electoral Commission to mean the entire institution, then we would not run into the problems that we are running into. Because as we saw, and as will be demonstrated by our subsequent speakers, that exactly is what happened. The entire bureaucracy or the entire institution of IEBC participated in that process. As I conclude, I want to make a submission that when we make these allegations in our election petitions, perhaps we need to also ask ourselves if we have done that which the law contemplates of us. And that if the law gives you an opportunity to choose your agent for purposes of verifying or speaking to you in relation to the processes in the election, if you fail to present an agent, would it be appropriate to then come and burden the subsequent processes through applications such as what we're seeing for scrutiny? Because the law contemplates that that agent should be able to point you to the fact there's a problem in a particular primary school. Go there. Don't ask for the entire of a constituency. Don't ask for the entire of a county. And I think that has been the jurisprudence that has been developed. It then follows that we must sanctify the place of agents in our elections. And because agents are like our spouses, you choose your own. You choose the one you trust. If you get, nobody imposes an agent on you. If you choose one you don't trust, then really you can't blame anyone. If you choose one who does not understand why you assigned them that responsibility, again, you cannot possibly blame anyone. So, as I seek to take my seat, we ask, my ladies and my lords, that in the usual strong manner in which you've spoken in relation to these issues, and following the very lengthy submissions that we had yesterday, we also rely on you to help us clean this electoral system, so that as the Commission does its part, on the other hand, the public and every other person must also do their part. I am most obliged, and thank you for according me this opportunity.
My Lady, the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and the members of the Supreme Court, it's indeed a great honor to appear before you in relation to this petition. My role today here is to take you through the numbers. I will take you through the numbers. The numbers will be running on the screen.
Your name, please.
My name is Mahar Somane Advocate. My name is Mahar Somane Advocate. I'll take you through the numbers as it relates to the petition that has been filed. I will also give you an audit trail of mechanism which the court can use to measure the petition. The first question that I'll answer today relates to the question that has been put to us. And the first one is whether the postponement of gubernatorial elections in Kakamega and Mombasa counties, parliamentary elections in Kitui Rural, Kachaliba, Rongai, and Pokot South constituencies, and electoral wards in Nyaki West, in North Imenti, and Kwanza in Embakasi resulted in voter suppression. The allegation of voter suppression due to postponement of these elections is not a question of hypothesis. It's a question of fact. It's a question of numbers. What I have done is we have gone through the numbers to give you a comparative data on whether the same is true. The first one, as it relates to Kitui Rural, we have gotten the data for the constituencies in Kitui. Your Ladyship, if you look at the constituencies for Kitui, the voter turnout for Kitui Rural was 60.29%. So for us to actually make a comparative data and analysis to actually see whether there's been voter suppression, we look at the constituencies nearby and see the data we are getting from the constituencies nearby, whether the inference can be made by this court that there has been voter suppression. The voter turnout for Kitui Rural is 60.29%. I have highlighted in yellow in your screens. It is comparatively similar to the voter turnout in Kitui Central. In fact, it is Kitui Rural is higher. Kitui Central is 60.10. It's comparative to Mwingi Central. So to the question the court asked, whether there was voter suppression in Kitui Central constituency because of the postponed election, the answer is an emphatic no. I will go to the second question. The second question the court asked is whether the postponement of elections in Kachaliba and Pokot South led to a voter suppression that led to low voter turnout in favor of the petitioner. The answer is data-based. I have provided the comparative analysis. I want the court to look at it. The voter turnout for West Pokot was 81.44. The voter turnout for Kachaliba was 81.44. I have highlighted in yellow. The voter turnout for Pokot South is 80.44. It is higher than Kapenguria. It is higher than Sigor. Comparatively, in fact, those voter turnouts were higher than the ones which the elections were not proposed. That claim falls flat on the data that were provided to court. I will proceed. I will go to Rongai. The question the court asked is whether the postponed elections in Rongai led to suppression of voter. I have provided the data on Rongai. The voter turnout of Rongai was 61.41 for the presidential. It is higher than in Joro. It is higher than in Naivasha. and it's comparatively similar to the other similar constituencies. To the allegation that there was voter suppression in those places because of the election that was postponed, that allegation is untrue, falls flat on the data we have provided. To the other question, whether the postponed elections in the MCA ward for Nyaki West led to voter suppression, the voter turnout for Nyaki West was 64.32. If you look at North Imenti, it was even lower. It's comparatively similar to the other we have provided. To that allegation, that falls flat on the data and the comparative data we have provided. To the allegation that the MCA ward in Kwanza, that there was voter suppression because of that, the MCA ward in Kwanza, the voter turnout was 46.32, comparatively similar to Embakasi South, which is 49.62, comparatively similar to Imara Daima and also in Pipeline. To that allegation, when you look at the comparative data, it's not a matter of hypothesis, it is not borne out by the data. To the allegation that the postponed elections in Kakamega led to voter suppression in terms of the petitioners' votes being undercast, the allegation falls flat on the comparative data. We have provided the data for Vihiga, which is similar. Bungoma was a bit higher, but Vihiga is the same. So comparatively, when you look at those data points, that allegation falls flat. To the allegation that in Mombasa, there was a voter suppression because of the election that was run, I want to point out, even in 2017, the general voter turnout in Mombasa is generally very low. That data is available. It's always lower than the other constituencies. But comparatively, it is almost something that is comparable. To those, so I have answered. So to the question that the court put out on the comparative data, the answer is there was no voter separation in those places. Senior Counsel Kamau Karori has already explained on the reasons why those elections was not held. There was nothing premeditated about those elections, not holding those elections. Reasons have been given in the affidavits of the chairman Wafula Chebukati and Marjan Hussein Marjan. So to that allegation, we want to show the court the petitioners have a hypothesis. We have provided the data to the court to actually aid the court to come to a conclusion. The second question I want to answer that the court put out to us was whether there are unexplainable discrepancies between the votes cast for the presidential candidates and other elective posts. Indeed, if there was unexplainable discrepancies, is a grave issue, which we know. We will show through the data that we have provided to the court that the same is not true. In fact, we can account for each ballot. To just guide the court, refer to the affidavit of Moses Ledama Sunkuli, which is on record. We have provided the comparative analysis. In fact, what I did is we provided the 34C, the 37C, 38C, and 39C. Those are the forms for the governor, the senator, and the women rep. We tallied against the presidential. I want to refer the court to paragraph 36 of Moses Ledama's affidavit for the court to look at it. And if you do a tally, and we started with a tally for Senate, if you do a tally for the votes that were cast for the Senate, vis-a-vis, and that, Your Ladyship, that runs from page 13 of Ledama's affidavit up to page 15. And I just did the summary analysis, but there's a very big comparative table that I've put out there. If you do the analysis, you will come to the following conclusion. What is the voter difference between the senator and the presidential? 500 votes, the variance. And how do we account for those variants? So when you do the presidential like for like and the senator, you will get a difference of 22,801. You have to minus diaspora voters, which only vote for the presidential. You have to minus prisons, which only vote in the presidential elections, okay? And then you have to look at stations which were affected and did not have any results for any of those elective posts. For example, in some of the stations, some few stations, some violence happened. Likely they did not report for Senate. When you do that analysis, you will get the differential is 500 votes. I have done an elaborate analysis also on the stray ballots. When we get to that, I will explain. So the differential between the Senate and the presidential is 500 votes. And that 500 votes, we can account for in stray ballots. I have attached the polling day diaries for Kibra and Makadara. I have done an analysis to actually check what is the stray ballot per constituency. And this tally is like for like. So to the question whether there was a discrepancy between the presidential and the Senate vote, the answer is an emphatic no. It is explainable. by looking at what the information that we have provided. To the second question, whether there was a discrepancy between the women member of National Assembly for the women rep as compared to the presidential, I will tell the court to look at page 18, page 17 and 18 of Moses Ledama's affidavit. And our answer is there is no much difference, and the differences can be accounted for. The variance analysis we have provided. To the question whether there was a discrepancy between governor and presidential, we have also explained that there's no such variance. Petitioners have been talking of variance of 800,000, 900,000. There's no such variance. And in fact, the small variance that you will see for the women rep, which is 9,419, can be explained for by the stray ballot. A small analysis we did for the stray ballots, Your Lordship, is that in Kebra constituency alone, we did a stray ballot analysis, and it's shown there. So to explain, and this is how we understood the court to mean the duty of the IEBC is to explain each ballot cast and track that ballot to see where it has gone. So once we do the analysis for the presidential and we remove the prison voters, once we remove the people who voted for diaspora, once we removed some of the small polling stations that did not report for any of those seats, you will see a small variance. So we thought the court will ask where that small variance is coming from. And so what I did is we went to sample one of the constituencies in Nairobi. And in one of the constituencies, Kibra constituency, we got 405 stray ballots. So you can't account for the way it will work is it will take from any of those ballots small incremental numbers. So you will see a variance of 500 here, 200 here, but cumulatively it is not something that cannot be explained. And I have attached all the polling day diaries. In fact, if you look at the Form 34A, which was supplied to the court, some of the comments section will indicate that they found some stray ballot in the presidential ballot. But to the court, whether there is discrepancy between the senatorial, governor, and the women rep seats as compared to the presidential, there is none. We have demonstrated that with data. And even when there's a small variance, we have shown the stray ballots that cumulatively over those 3 seats, that will be there. A question was, a submission was made by Learned Counsel, Ms. Julie Soweto, that there is 33 per polling station stray ballots in Kirinyaga. I will explain that. I don't know what numbers they are using. It's an old litigation strategy in numbers for shock and awe. I think what they are trying to, if you look at the numbers for Kirinyaga, there is no difference between presidential and the governor of 22,000. In fact, the variance is 900 votes, which can be explained for by the stray ballot. The number they have indicated for governor, I don't know where they have gotten it from, is not what is in our 37C, and we've indicated that in our submission and also in our presentation. So to the question that the court asked, that whether there are inexplainable discrepancies between the votes cast for presidential as against the governor, for presidential as against the women rep, for presidential as against the Senate, the same is not borne out by the data that we have provided to the court. Now I'll go to another issue which was made heavy weather of by learned counsels on the voter turnout. Justice Moki Mwanjala asked, how important is the voter turnout to the actual valid votes and to the actual declarations? Of course, it's an important issue. The only problem with it is that counsel are not understanding how we calculate voter turnout. And I want to explain to the court how voter turnout calculation is done using the kits. Pursuant to the Maina Kiai case, the court was very emphatic that elections must be conducted at the polling stations. And pursuant to that, voter turnout reporting is done per polling station. So how do we do it? When the polling station opens and Kenyans are voting, depending on the network access of the kits will be sending us information every 2 hours. The kit will be telling us 200 people has passed by this kit in this polling station, and that information will be collated until the end of polling day. So 2 things to note here. The first one is that the reporting is done per KIMS, per polling station of the reporting KIMS. So for example, on the 9th August 2022, when the polls closed, the IEBC gave a turnout figure of 56.1679%, which is the percentage turnout. That correlated to the total number of registered voters in those schemes, in those polling stations. The problem that the petitioners are having, they are saying these 56.1679% you announced must be of the total people in the register, which is 22,140,258. 120,258. We don't do that. We report per KIMS. So if 200 people reported in that KIM and the number of registered voters is 600, we say 200 of 600 voters. We add the next KIM, 300 people have reported, we say 300 over 600 voters. The next KIM, 400 KIMs have reported, 400 over 600. We keep on aggregating until we see how many KIMs have reported of those polling stations. Why do we do that? Because of 2 reasons. The first one is, which is in the affidavit of Hussein Marjan and the affidavit of the chairman, because of network issues in some places, far-flung places in Kenya, some of those KIMs will report late. Some of those KIMs will report much later. So if we did a number over the total number of registered voters, we will be giving a false turnout. So the turnout we give is based on the aggregated voters of the reporting station in that KIM. So if you took when we announced, the 56.1679% is based on the total registered voters in those stations who have reported in those KIMs, which was 21,481,642. Your Ladyship, you'll realize this is much lower than the total number of registered voters. And we'll keep on accumulating. KIMs will keep on reporting. 235 polling stations went manual. We will have to later on aggregate the 235 polling stations which went manual. Then we come with a total voter turnout. And if that is the reporting we do, 2 arguments that have been made in the petition of Omtata and in the petition of number 5 fall off. The first one is, their contention is that the chairman announced a turnout on 10th August 2022. That is the third line, Your Ladyship and members of the court, announced a turnout of 65.4%. What we have indicated is 64.6%. Your Ladyship, I will pause there to just inform the court that the chairman clarified that statement. The recording is in the affidavit of the chairman. And the actual clarification the chairman gave, he said that the total reporting polling stations, and if you hear his statement, it will give some clarification. We never say the total number of registered voters, because we will have that information when our manual count and everything has reported. We say total number of polling stations reporting. So in those schemes. So they're saying 64.6% must be of the total registered voters. That is their contention. That is their voter turnout. That is not the voter turnout of IEBC. The voter turnout as a percentage was, at that point, 64.6%. The number of reporting schemes were 21,926,565. You will notice from this number, there are some polling schemes which haven't reported. As they go to the constituency tallying center, those schemes will report. You will also notice that we haven't included the manual count to give us a total figure of the total voters who will have registered, who will have reported. On 10 August, when all the schemes returns have come from all the polling stations, the number of persons identified, that is the last number on the table, 14,239,862. As against the total registered voters in those stations which reuse the schemes, 22,005,541, giving a turnout of 64.7103. You notice, Your Ladyship, we haven't included the manual count. So that is all schemes in all polling stations. What remains now? Manual count. And this is important. I will pause there. We were very deliberate in trying to help the court in be able to identify and actually provide an audit process for the contesting parties' allegations. In the affidavit of Michael Ouma, we have attached 7 volumes of the schemes returns for every polling stations in the Republic. Why is that important for the petitioners and the court? That is the first audit trail process. How is it at the first audit trail process of? We've provided the schemes returns per polling stations in the Republic. We've also provided the certified copy of the 30A. So if anyone wanted to look at how many people pass in that polling station, you will look at your schemes return, you will look at your 34A. And if there's any inconsistencies between the schemes return and the 34A provided to the court, then question can be asked to our client. So in providing an audit trail process, the first way of providing an audit, which is both manual and electronic, is the schemes return provided in the affidavit of Michael Ouma in 7 volumes, as against the certified copy of 34A we provided as per the regulations of this court. So we provided that. And if you look at those schemes returns, they will correspond with this. They are from 45,994 polling stations. The number identified by schemes, 14,229,862. The total number of registered voters, 22,005,591. And the percentage is as indicated. We've indicated how many schemes there were. And I just want to and how many people are registered in those polling stations? 22,124,058. How many polling stations were authenticated through using the kits? 45,994. How many registered voters are those in those polling stations? 14,239,862. What are the registered voters in those polling stations authenticated through the kits? 22,005,591. What are the polling stations that were not authenticated through the kits? 235, out of which 6 polling stations, 3 in Eldas and 3 in Quisero, there was violence. And no voting took place, in fact, at the time of that. And so how many polling stations went manual? Using complementary system, 229. What are the number of voters authenticated through the complementary manual system? 86,889. What are the registered voters in those 235 polling stations? 114,917. Why are these numbers important? They are important for audit trail. First, we have provided the KIMS returns to the court, which can be compared as against. Secondly, 99.9914% of Kenyans were authenticated through the KIMS. Less than 0.001 Kenyans were authenticated through a complementary mechanism. And the reason why I go back to that is giving the court an integrity check as to what we did. So if we are telling the court that 99.99% of Kenyans were authenticated through the kits, we have provided the receipts from those kits to the court, we have provided the Form 34A, then the court can compare and will bear out the work we did. Another allegation falls off. So what is the allegation in the Omtata petition? And I will go back to the turnout table. My ladyship. They are saying that the turnout announced by the chairman on 10th August 2022 must be over the total registered voters. That is where the mysterious 140,000 is coming from. So they are saying the 64.60 must be from the 22,124,058. We are telling them that is not how we calculate our turnout. It was very easy to confirm with us and ask us how you do it. We're telling them that number is out of 21,926,565. We could not do it over the registered voters because some stations went manual, some KIMS had not reported. How will we give a number over a total in which we don't know the status of some of those stations? Because the returns have to come for us to be able to give that. So they're saying 64.6 over the total voter turnout will give you 140,000. IEBC has not accounted for 140,000 voters. It's a lie. I think they are wrong on the maths, and they are wrong on the substance, and they are wrong on the substratum of how we are calculating that. And I think it's imperative that the court understands that. So the issue of 140,000 is not here nor there, and we have demonstrated that. And the second issue is they say that there was 110 voters error, 110 error in the Form C. By virtue of that, the Form C is not a valid vote. We have acknowledged that error. It's a data entry error in 2 stations in Kilifi and 1 station in West Pokot. It is the error form for the C is attached to the chairman's affidavit of 110. The Form C is a collation of 46,229 polling stations, and there is an error of 110 in which we have explained the data entry. I think that is not something that is material to the Form C for the court to say that a Form C is invalid because of an error which you have acknowledged. Your Ladyship, we also want to confirm to the court, we have done an error report for each and every polling station in the Republic. And this is going to be, and we really are craving for the scrutiny report to bear, and this will bear us out. That the voters, what Kenyans voted on the 9th of August is what was transmitted, and it's what was actually announced by the chairman. The will of the Kenyan people was carried out through and through. And that will be borne on by the scrutiny of those ballot boxes. That will be borne out by the information and the data we have given. And that is really important. The other issue I want to actually address is allegations that have been, Your Ladyship, if I could just go to the affidavit of Mother, I mean, this is what I was talking to. I mean, there's an allegation of paragraph 96 of the affidavit of the petitioner that alleges there's a variance of 25,000 between governor and president. The correct position is there's a variance of 900. It's worth noting the county is home to 2 prisons. And this is what the court should, and we can provide the court with, even if the court is inclined to even order us to bring all the original Form 34As and the Cs. We are ready and willing to provide that to the court. Some of these allegations, when you look at it, you really cringe that the allegations that are being made on these numbers, they have no basis. You will actually wonder how will someone write something like that in the petition? We have provided a tally of our the C series for the governor, for the senator, and the women rep. And we're ready to provide that to the court. We have put that in our affidavit. We are ready to provide whatever the courts will require to actually prove some of those numbers that are being banded. And some of these numbers are just meant for awe and shock, because it is very shocking to the court, to the conscience of the court, if you are told there are 25,000 people who walked into the polling stations in Kirinyaga, voted for the presidential candidate and did not vote for anyone else. It's really amazing. I will expect a variance because of the small stray ballots here and there, or maybe the prisons and diaspora, but it will not be 25,000. It's something should be that is explainable. And that is why the petitioners are wrong on the data, they are wrong on the numbers. And I will also demonstrate they are very wrong on even the ICT. I will add on to what Judge Eric Gumbo had also submitted. There are two allegations that are being made that the Form 34A, and I want to explain this to the court. So we have 3 audit trails or 3 verification processes for the court. The first I mentioned, it's the EVI, the electronic voter identification. We have given the KIMS return to the court. So the court will look at the KIMS returns and look at the AOL, the tally. The second one is when the Form 34A is being sent, and I've seen a lot of wild allegations being made, and I want to just explain this to the court. At the end of the polling, what happens is the kit, it converts itself into an RTS system, a result transmission system. The PO scans a QR code, it gives him a transition system. So it tells him, okay, Mr. PO, what do you want to transmit? Enter your PIN. He will enter his code. It gives him a query. You tell him, what do you want to do? He says, I want to transmit 34A. It tells him, okay, can you confirm the following checks have happened? And that's a validation check. Can you confirm that this form is signed by a PO? He says, yes. Can you confirm that this form is signed by a DRO, a deputy PO? He says, yes. Can you confirm this form is a 34A? He says, yes. Can you confirm this form has been signed by the agents? He says, yes. So after saying all that, then he tells him, take an image. And there's a lot of things being banded here about the image. And we can provide, I think we've done training for the IEBC has done training for everyone, for LSK and the judges, and this is something that we can even provide if the kits are required. The kit takes an image, embedded in it, it has a scanner, and the image is embedded in the KIMS, so it's taking the image, and it's taking the image and scanning it as a PDF. We don't have any other output. We don't, and there's a reason why I'll explain to you why that input is being made, why it's like that for purposes of the security and the other purposes. He takes the image. It actually tells him if the image is not clear, it will tell him your image is not clear. Please retake it. So he takes his image and he presses send. That image travels from that. It is gone. He cannot recall. In fact, even if he does not have network, it will tell him the image has been sent. It will arrive when it will arrive. That image cannot be recalled in PDF. There's nothing that can be called. That scanned image in PDF, there's nothing that can be done about it. That is gone. When he gets network, or immediately if he has network, it will hit our portal. Now, when it hits our portal, it's something akin to someone who's coming in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is established by the Constitution, and it has the jurisdiction by the court is limited by the Constitution. So those forms answer some jurisdiction questions before they are admitted into the public portal. What are those questions? So they ask, okay, you have come here, you have come into the court. If you want to sit here inside the court, answer the following question. They ask, are you a 34A? He says, yes, I am a 34A. Okay, do you confirm that you come from the code of the polling station? So it has a code of the polling station. So it will run against the polling station codes, it will confirm. Then it is asked, okay, we've confirmed you are an A, we've confirmed that you are from the code of the polling station provided to us, because all our polling stations have specific codes. Then we ask them, then it's asked the third question, do you come from a serial number of our kit? Then he answers, yes. I am from the serial number of the kit. If it is another form which is coming, are you from, if it's not from a serial number, it checks, it tells, no, you can't come in here, you have no jurisdiction. So it tells, do you come from a serial number of our kit? It says, yes. Then it's asked, do you come from the SIM card that has been provided officially that we have the list for from the various providers? It answers yes. Then it's given 2 security features, which are very important for the court. So it's given 2 security features. It is given a date stamp. And I urge the court to interact with the public portal. I want to confirm to the court 800 million persons access our portal. It did not even blink for a second. Its security, its firewalls, and the SOC are military grade. And in fact, a lot of the allegations that are coming from the other side is, people are so frustrated in trying to hack our system is, why is your system so good? Our system is so good because it's based on blockchain. It actually, what it does, it actually gives resources as is required. If the 50 million Kenyans logged in now to our portal, it will give them without even stuttering whatever form they want. And it will allocate resources on how many people. Out of those 380 million people, 300 million were Kenyans who downloaded, who looked at the result. So after asking that, it gives 2 things. It gives a timestamp. The form is given a timestamp, and it's given a date stamp. Now, with that, one of the allegations of staging falls away. So someone is telling you, someone captured a form, amended it, returned it. I am telling you, all my forms have a date and timestamp to the millisecond. And there is no one form that has been transmitted at the same time. And in fact, if you look at the portal, you will see that. You open the portal, if you look at the tab of the portal, it will say 34A. It will tell you the polling station. It will tell you the KIM serial. It will tell you the date the form came. And how precise is this system? Some of those forms came on the date of the election. Some of the forms, because of tallying, came a day later. Some of them came 2 days later because of the elections in Eldas. And it will give you the timestamp to the millisecond. And actually, if you look at it, so if someone is telling you, oh, we had staging of 11,000 forms, you will expect that to the millisecond, right? To the millisecond, you will get 11,000 forms which have been uploaded. And I want to inform the court, there is no one who can upload the Form 34A. Form 34A are only transmitted from the KIMS by the PO. Neither Wafula Chebukati, nor Hussein Marjan, nor Boya Molu, nor anyone else can upload Form 34A. Form 34A is transmitted from the polling station, goes, and that is the end of that story. And once it goes, it asks those questions. Now, our forms are designed that way. Why? Some of the forms that have been brought to you, and with due tremendous respect, I spend a lot of time with my ICT people and look at some. Some of those forms are doctored forms. Why are they doctored? Because of the audit trail that will not allow anyone to be able to actually not be able to verify our forms. Why? So I told you about the EVID and the KIMS, returns plus the form. So these forms not have an agent and person who had. So if I didn't have an agent in the polling station, that form travels to the arrow. What does the arrow do with the form? His PO will sit there, he'll tell him, I have received the form in the portal. I want to confirm the form you have brought me is the same as the portal. Is it the same serial number? Is it from that KIMS kit? Does the tally agree with what is in the portal? He has a back end for his B because he has to start populating his B. So he takes the form. So we allow at the Constituent Tallying Center to have agents. If you want copies of the form, can be given. So if you didn't have agent at the polling station, you can still get your form at the Constituent Tallying Center. So say you didn't have an agent at the Constituency Tallying Center, you didn't have an agent at the polling station. We bring the form out to the National Tallying Center. And I think this is the reason why this court made the decision that the chairman must verify each and every form. And court will take judicial notice of what was going on in Bomas. We had 14 verification desks. The arrow will come. I had the pleasure of actually going through the process. The arrow will come. He will be told, okay, you've come with your forms, sit. He will be admitted. And then the verification desk will have all the 4 agents for all the presidential candidates. We take the forms as they are. We make copies of the originals for them. Remember, they have their agents' forms. We make copies of the original. We tell them, okay, these are the copies of our original. Have your agents' forms, compare with our originals, but also what we are going to do is not a verification process. We'll do a forensic audit for you. We'll call the RO. He will sit on the table there. He will go form by form. Is it the same serial number? Is it from that polling station? We provided microtext readers. We provided watermark readers of the originals. The agents are seated there. They will check, and they will look at it. And the form will have the IEBC. It will have the watermark reader. It will have everything. So even if you don't have the forms at the CTC and at the polling station, and you had the form at the constituency, and you are given the form as at the NTC, you could still verify and actually check. After that, they will go to an ICT desk. The ICT now will confirm whether those forms and what is in the portal is the same. And some of the persons who've sworn some of the affidavits in the petition were seated on those tables. The ICT will open up his portal. He say, oh, this is the public portal. I am looking at the form. Let's confirm what is in the form, what is in the portal. Do they tally? They tally. If there's any issue, we do an error report, which we have provided to the court. We have provided error report to them. That process is documented. And even if you didn't have all those agents, then you had an opportunity to do at the National Tallying Center. After that, we tell them, okay, we've started populating the C. Now, have you verified this polling station? Yes. Okay, now we put that into our C. And the idea that the C was kept on changing and some officers had access to the C, actually that allegation falls off. Why? 14 officers, and we've attached that into the affidavit of Martin Nyaga, including the chairman's PA, Mr. Abdi Daher, who is a registered, who is a returning officer, and 14 other persons were mandated to actually do that verification process on the table. There's a process for them to be given that access. And the access, what access do they have? People are burning up a lot of things, servers and things like that. So there are 3 applications level in any system. You will have the application, you will have the operating system and the network, okay? So everyone has access. So they have access for the verification of the 34C. So they'll be told, we're putting in this polling station to the C, are you okay with it? Does this tally with what is in the original? They will say, yes, that is populated. When we finish for one constituency, we print that aspect of the Form 34C, because Form 34C is something that is gradual. The verified form from the form that has traveled from Kipini in Lamu to the CTC, Constituency Tallying Center, through the portal, physically through Bomas, through the verification desks of the agents and the people complaining here, now they are told, are you okay if we put into the C? It's put into the C. It's printed out, and that is what was being announced. So if you got the logs for the C, it will say, the person who's authorized printed out a C because it was being announced. Some of the commissioners now complaining were announcing those forms, and it's incremental. It will go on until we finish. Now coming back to the form. So the first security feature is, if you look at the portal I've indicated, it has all those. But we put security features to enable the court and everyone to authenticate our forms. If you open our forms in Acrobat Reader, you will get a signature panel. You will get a signature panel. And the signature panel is able to tell you the path of validation of our forms. It will tell you that this form, in fact, the timestamp you'll get on the signature panel is the same as the timestamp when that form was received at the portal. And I've projected, your ladyship have projected there. And if you are a good Acrobat, it will tell you, it will give you a signature panel. It will tell you that this form was not first modified. If you have any PDF form document and you have modified, it will tell you this document was modified on this date by XYZ. It will tell you this form has not been modified from that date. It will also give you a signature. You see that time there? That is the time that is on when it was received on the portal. It's the same timestamp that when you open any form on the portal, it will indicate. So the allegation that forms were intercepted, staging happened, the authentication of our forms are very robust. So the second one now, so how is someone able to prove that our forms do not tally with what is in the portal? You only have to do one thing. You have to download our forms from the portal, get a relatively good Photoshop, and change the numbers on the tally. And I'll come to those allegations where the 34A in the portal are the same as what was given to the agents. We have provided 44 affidavits from various POs. Some of our POs who are Kenyans have had a very sleepless nights. Allegations have been made against them that the forms they brought to the ROs were different from what was announced. The allegations of an affidavit made by someone should be checked against the affidavits of each and every polling station clerk and polling presiding officer who we have endeavored to give the affidavits to the court. And we have given 44 affidavits for presiding officers on these allegations, and many more affidavits for the returning officers. So the only way you will be able to show is you have to print out our form. And the problem with that one is because you cannot do anything about this, where the agents and everything sign, you have to get a Photoshop, amend it to JPEG, get a Photoshop, and actually just remove with the tally. But like every other plan, it has a lot of weaknesses. And the first weakness you will get is, and the first thing they say is, in Gaina polling station in Tiati, that their agent provided them a form. And this is really important for the court. We say untruths have only one leg. They don't have two legs to stand on. The truth stands firm. They say in Gaina polling station, and this is in the affidavit of Arnold Ochieng, that their agent provided them a form. The form is different to what is in the portal. If you look at what is in the portal, that is in the affidavit of Moses Sunkuli, and even the form he has attached himself, it says there was no agent in Gaina polling station. We haven't even gone to authentication and the verification of the process and the form, and I will show that why this is a bad Photoshop gone wrong. So the first allegation is, in Gaina polling station, their agent gave them a form. The tally for the presidential candidate is different from that. Guess what? The form they provided does not indicate there was no agent. And even our portal says there was no agent for any candidate. Not only for them. In Gaina, there was no agent for, I don't know why the parties didn't send an agent there. Maybe because of security in Tiati, or we don't know. But there was no agent for anyone. He says, I had an agent, and this is his tally. So to the question that whether the forms provided by the agents are the same as what is in the portal, the court has to come to one conclusion. Those forms that are being provided in those stations are doctored. They are forgeries, and bad forgeries at that. The first paragraph of that affidavit says so. The other thing you will notice, that what they have attached, we were very deliberate why our KIMS kit will have an imaging software embedded and sent in PDF. One is because of the security I've indicated. The second one is because, since it is black and white, and agents will be taking pictures of the form, we wanted to differentiate between what the agents are taking with their form and what we are sending ourselves. So what have they done? Our forms have been printed from the portal, converted to JPEG, numbers fudged. But the problem is, all the background for those forms are our KIMS kit. It's what we sent in the portal. And I've indicated that in the affidavit of Moses Sunkuli. The second and the more problematic thing, and analytically the court will ask, is it possible that 44 agents all over Kenya will take pictures of forms in black and white, the same as the background of our Kim's kit? And the reason is because of the robustness of our processes. Because we have a manual check and we also have an electronic check. The manual check I have described, the electronic check, the EVI. The second electronic check, I have described how our forms arrives. So if someone made an allegation that, oh, the form of my agent is different from what I have, the court should ask, okay, we have a portal, we have IEBC POs who are saying something else, we have the original, which has gone different stages. How come it's only your form? And what is fudge, Your Ladyship, I want to point out to the court, is the only thing that has been amended in those four is the number of tallies. Why have they done that? To tell the court, oh, look, IEBC portal is different from what we have. Okay, if you are thinking, and the challenge that I have been given the challenge that I've been told by my ICT people is we will leave our portal open for another year. If any one of these people who are alleging anything, let them go upload one form. And we took our constitutional duty very seriously to give that audit trail to the court for the court to be able to make a determined decision. I will mention 3 things on ICT. The first one is John Gidongo has given us an affidavit, which we have answered with Martin Nyaga's affidavit. He has given forged logs. And when we actually answered and actually told him these are forged logs from 2017, he said, oh, these are demo, but these are the real ones. But I think the court should look at the real logs. For example, one of the logs that is charged is the one for Justice Nyangaya. Justice Nyangaya attached Linux cron logs. The Ladyship, it's like, and he says these people had access. It's easy to read those logs. They do not mention, no one of those people had access. It's like someone telling you, as you are using your computer, it's running background information, it will give a lot of, the OS will be running. It gives a lot of information. And someone says, oh, Emma had accessed the laptop of the judges and did this. And the information that person is giving you is the OS system. Oh, this server,